Yeah, no, let me talk about me first, about my relationship with the EFF. I don't trust them. I remember Julius, Malema, and I was part of the leadership when we were negotiating with the EFF to come into coalition. They refused to come into a coalition government. The DA was negotiating with them then. So the DA squealing about the EFF now, to me, is just nonsense. We tried our best. Malema refused. He went into a cooperation agreement, which is mistake number one. Never go into a cooperation agreement with a political party that's your competitor, because they'll cooperate today and they won't cooperate tomorrow. And then transaction.
Sorry, Athol, are you talking about South Africa in general, or are you talking about Nelson Mandela Bay?
About what in general?
The agreement that you're not talking
national.
Okay.
National agreement. National agreement. And the EFF said, we will not go into coalition, okay? But we will cooperate with the DA. And Julius Malema said, the DA is a better devil than the ANC. So then that was the first thing I realized, that he had this attitude that my enemy's enemy will be my friend for the time being, that we were useless or useful idiots. And we went into that agreement, and it was a cooperation agreement. And it wasn't long that they turned on me because the DA would not support the EFF on expropriation without compensation in Parliament. Then Julius Malema said, we'll teach you a lesson. We're going to cut the throat of whiteness. We're going to get rid of Trollip. And when we've got rid of Trollip, we're going to go after Mashaba and we're going to go after Solim Simanga. That's what he said. It's on the record. So Herman Mashaba made a point the other day to me. He reminded me, he said, I was the mayoral candidate for Joburg. I was never part of the negotiations with the EFF. I was given a negotiated contract with the EFF by the DA. Bear that in mind. He didn't negotiate it. The DA leadership negotiated that agreement. I didn't have to have even a cooperation agreement with the EFF in Nelson Mandela Bay because we had an outright coalition majority. Herman and Solly had to cooperate with them. They had to cooperate with them because they were minority governments, okay? So the EFF's position was they were going to show the DA that even when we aren't actually in a cooperation agreement with you, we're going to hurt you, we're going to get rid of Trollip. And that is the problem with the EFF. That's why I don't trust them. They are the ultimate transactional politicians. They're fair weather friends. They'll be there today, and when you need them tomorrow, they're gone, because Julius Malema is only interested in one thing. He's not even interested in the EFF. He's interested in a reverse takeover of the ANC because he wants to become president. So I said to Herman, we need to be clear about the EFF. Is it the EFF that you like, or is it about putting a coalition together to govern, to fix the mess of the ANC? And he made it quite clear to me. He said, that's what it's about. It's about governing to fix the mess of the ANC. You'll remember Julius Malema in December last year. He might not remember, but go and check in the archives. He said that Herman Mashaba was a naive and ignorant politician, and that the EFF would show him about politics. So all this nonsense that Herman Mashaba is in love with the EFF, it's not. He made it quite clear at the press conference where I was announced as the new chairman. He said, we're going to contest against every single party. We want the votes from other political parties. That is the art of politics, is to convince people from the EFF, the ANC, the Freedom Front Plus, the IFP, COPE, ACDP, everyone to come to ActionSA. And that's what we're going to do. We're not in any formal arrangement, non-aggression pact or anything with the EFF. The EFF is fair game for ActionSA.
So if the ANC were to fall below 50%, what advice would you give Herman Mashaba if you had to form a coalition with the EFF? How would you handle such a situation?
Well, look, if you look at the coalition governments, some coalition governments use Israel, for example. Have a look at what's there. You've got people from the far left to the far right and ultra-conservatives in the middle. So if you have a situation which voters bring about, incidentally, and I think voters need to start thinking about, if they really want change, they must think strategically when they vote, because voting for a whole plethora of new parties and independent parties and individuals that end up, negotiating for themselves into positions and forgetting what they promised the electorate, that's not going to make things easy. So at the moment, I think we've got probably more political parties in this country than anywhere else in the world. And I think that we should be moving towards having a threshold that if you don't get 5%, for example, in an election, you can't participate in it. They have that in Germany. And even then, in Germany, they still have to put coalition governments together. And Angela Merkel governed coalition governments really well for a long time. And they didn't all agree. They certainly didn't agree all the time, but she was a master at keeping those coalitions together. So I would advise Herman the following. First of all, pick your partners very carefully. Don't throw everyone who's against the ANC into the same bucket, because they will give you a headache and the coalition won't last. But more importantly, make sure you draw up a coalition agreement that's signed in blood by the participants. Because I saw in Nelson Mandela Bay, the EFF could not have cut my throat if they didn't have the support of the UDM. And the UDM was our coalition partner. And they voted with Bantu Holomisa's UDM and made Mongameli Bobani the mayor. So without him, they couldn't have got it right. They tried 6 times. Only when one of the DA members voted with them and our coalition partner, the UDM, voted with them against our coalition agreement, they should have been kicked out for every infraction of our coalition agreement. They broke everyone. They weren't kicked out. They eventually got us taken out. So even if the EFF wanted me out, they could never have been able to cut my throat if it wasn't for the UDM reneging on the coalition agreement. And that's what the public don't remember. The UDM was treacherous, traitorous, and I'd had multiple meetings with the DA leadership and Bantu Holomisa to say, this man is corrupt and is not fulfilling the negotiated agreements of this coalition, and he should have been kicked out. He never was. Ultimately, we lost the government. So if you don't have the courage of your convictions to act against people who break coalition agreements, you must suffer the consequences. So I would say to Herman, sign the coalition agreement in blood so that people know that if you break the coalition agreement, you're going to be kicked out of the coalition, regardless of what the consequences are.